Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. Welcome to the Small Business Banter podcast. I'm Michael Kerr, your host, and I'm also the founder of Kerr Capital, where I work day to day with business owners. The Small Business Banter podcast is built just for business owners and will be especially relevant if you're an owner looking to sell, if you've been unexpectedly approached by a potential buyer, or if you're an aspiring owner about to buy a new business. There's a lot on the line personally and financially. It's stressful, it's emotional, and it's usually new territory. So to help, each episode of Small Business Banter is a discussion between me and another business owner or an experienced small business advisor. We talk about their experiences. So what you'll get is practical, real-life advice, different takes on everyday problems, and a renewed confidence to tackle your own business challenges. Welcome into another edition of Small Business Banter podcast. Episode or edition number 136. Sandy Chong joins me today. Big welcome, Sandy.
Thank you for having me.
Sandy there's a few things I want to read out about Sandy, but she's the current CEO of the Australian Hairdressers Council. She's been a past director of COSBOA. She's significantly the 2023 recipient of the National Small Business Champion Award from COSBOA, and big congrats on that. That was only a few months back. And also the past owner of your own hairdressing salon, which you sold recently after 39 years. So that's congratulations also on that. That's a mighty fine performance, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you.
So what we're going to cover today broadly, I came across you when you were on audition of The Drum on the ABC, and you were chatting about closures of salons in your industry, and that really piqued my interest. I'm going to talk about your beyond. You are a business owner, were a business owner up until very recently, but you're in an executive role with an industry association, and I want to talk about your take on the future of small business, what industry bodies can do about it, your personal experience as an owner, and critically the pathway from being an employee to being an owner, because there's a lot of small businesses right across the spectrum that I worry about who's going to take them on. I mean, we need the jobs, but we also need someone to own it to make the jobs and keep the jobs. So can you, so again, big welcome. Can you give us a few minutes on your background as an owner and your current role at the AHC?
Yeah, sure. So, yes, I did own my business for 39 years. It was a hairdressing salon called Suki. It's based in Newcastle. However, I did also have one for 10 years in Paddington in Sydney. So at one stage I had around 45 staff altogether, but generally we would sit around between 15 and say 24 staff in Newcastle. By the time I sold, I had got it under that magic number of 15 for IR reasons and wanting to sell. But yeah, I've had a really big career when it comes to my business and me personally, especially in the industry. I've been, I guess, a keynote speaker and presenter nationally, as well as internationally, where I've developed workshops on business. And most of those messages there were all about engaging staff and how to keep staff. I think probably one thing that was unique with my business, except for one girl who was from the UK out here in Ibiza and is still with them, or with my business that sold, all of my staff were my apprentices. So I was a homegrown business. There's probably one thing in the hairdressing industry. We've experienced a skill shortage now for over 20 years. And the one thing that I maintain is that poaching staff from other salons or other businesses is not a solution to a skill shortage. So we grew our own, and we've always believed in that. my role with as CEO of the Australian Hairdressing Council, I just sort of rolled into that. And during the pandemic, of course, it really meant that we really did step up a lot in representing the industry because it was such a harsh time. But I've been the CEO since 2012 and director on the board. And the AHC was first developed because we really didn't have a voice to the government. We really didn't have a voice that represented us. And being hairdressing, we're sort of part of the arts. If you were going to explain, what part of the trades do we represent, and we go under the arts. And sometimes the arts or creative industries can get a bit overlooked by the government or dismissed by the government, or even seen as, I guess, frivolous by the government. We're not taken as seriously as the engineers and, the mining companies of the world. And so we're small businesses. And so we felt it was time that we got a voice.
Yeah. And so were you CEO while you were also, you were owner of the salon. So that's for quite some time.
Yeah, well, I gave up my Paddington salon to work full-time for the AHC, and I haven't worked on the floor. My salon is actually right next door to my office, so I can look down there right now, and it's closed today. But usually I walk in the front door. I still see everybody. And I think probably one of the main things that anyone becomes a hairdresser. No one becomes a hairdresser to make lots of money. They become a hairdresser because they just love doing hair and they love looking after people. And I think what's really unique is the relationships that, we develop with the clients that come into the salon. And, there's lots of laughs, hopefully not too many tears, but you do go through their births, their deaths, their marriages, their boyfriends, their breakups, their kids growing up, going to college, their marriages, their grandchildren. So we develop these relationships, and it's one thing that I certainly loved about my career. But the thing is, I can still walk in the front door, say hi to everyone, sit down in my office right now. But I do slip out every now and then, just say hi to all the clients that I've known for years and years and years.
Yeah, you're up close and personal for hours with people. Mm. Yeah. You said something interesting there. You don't go into hairdressing to make a lot of money, but
there is potential there, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
There is potential for for anyone who does well. But, in any trade, in any industry, in any job, it comes down to how productive you are, isn't it? And how resourceful you are. And I do believe in education and training. The more you learn, the more you earn, and the more you invest in yourself. So I think anyone who's an individual in any trade, if they really put the hard work in, and if they put a lot of time and money and energy into their own education and training, and not expect others to be responsible for that on their own. But I think if you really take on that accountability, then there's huge opportunities there. Now, bear in mind, you can be a salon owner in hairdressing. Yes, you could work for someone and earn very good money if you're a productive hairdresser. That means you've got a really good clientele. But also, too, I've worked all around the world. And when I lived in Canada, I'd cut hair. And if you are a hairdresser, you can work anywhere in the world. You can work in movies and editorial work and, TVs, or you can be an educator. Many of our GMs of our companies are hairdressers who can be sales reps, or, there are endless opportunities if you actually use hairdressing as your base.
Yeah. It's a big industry. Hi there. It's just a quick interruption to the podcast, and it's a message from Kerr Capital, a supporter of the podcast. If you're a business owner thinking about selling and you're unsure about what you should do, well, the worst thing you can do is jump straight into an unprepared business sale. Cross your fingers and hope for the best. If you want to take control, get a sense of what your business is really worth and a plan to make it more sellable, then head over onto the Kerr Capital website, check out the value and sellability diagnostic. If it piques your interest, contact me, Michael Kerr, or book one of the free 45-minute diagnostic calls. Now let's head back to the podcast. So you took on the role of apprenticing a lot of your staff. I think just about everybody except someone that came from the UK, which is, extraordinary commitment. Is it a 3-year apprenticeship?
It is 3 years now. I think every one of my apprentices had probably, maybe except for one or two, had gone through the 4-year apprenticeship. But once I sold the salon, I had staff that had been with me who had worked with me even outside of the salon, so 40 years, 30 years, 28 years, 26 years, 20 years, 18 years, just going through them all, 18 years, 12 years, 7 years, and 4 years. They were my seniors. So even my coordinator had been with me for 26 years, I think.
Yeah. Who ended up buying your salon? Was it one of the team, or was it somebody from outside?
No, we've actually been approached a lot to buy Suki, and no one really suited. But last year, a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends, in fact, passed away unexpectedly. He was the CEO of Tony & Guy. So Tony & Guy is a global company. And in Australia, Dennis Langford was the CEO of the Australian franchisor. He passed away, and that was really devastating for me. But I kept in contact with his wife every week, and just to check in on how she was. And she took over as CEO. And one day she said to me, and it all happened really quickly. She said, "Oh, Sandy, the leadership team want to open in Newcastle," and I just said, "Well, why don't you buy Suki?" And I must admit, during the pandemic, so 2020, 2021, 22, and then, the recovery of the pandemic and, the cost of running a business nowadays, I just really haven't been able to, I guess, commit the time to my own business. And so the timing was perfect. They'll do an amazing job. And they're the only, I think, organisation that I trusted to take care of all of my team.
I think that's one of it's a big differentiator for a lot of owners in whether they, or a factor in whether they'll sell or not. Is the business going to a good home? And
that's right. And I've turned people down before because I didn't like them. I knew that they did not have my staff's interests at heart. And I've been offered a lot more money, but in the end, it was like, who's going to look after my team? And Tony & Guy ran out of their education and training worldwide. So, it was sort of like, I guess, Dennis's legacy, my legacy. I could have asked for, like a better company to buy my salon.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said at the start, one of the themes is sustaining the industry. Now, you're actively involved in that in your role as CEO of AHC, and I guess I'm really intrigued as to what you think is there a need to create more of a pathway to be an excellent practitioner, do an apprenticeship, but also to incorporate in that more about what it means to be a business owner? There's a lot of people don't want to be, that's fine, but I think there's some, talent and potential, needs a bit of guidance to take that step, because it is a big one, or can be a big one, to become an owner. What are your thoughts on?
It is. And look, one of the main reasons the AHC actually was developed was we created accreditation processes that recognise ethical business practices. And a whole part of that is going through a checklist, but we supply a lot of resources and support. When it comes to our trade and many others, we may have some excellent hairdressers and they're also very good on Instagram, but when it comes to technical ability and when it comes to business ability, then sometimes they need that extra education. So running a business is hard, okay? And no matter, I think, how experienced you are, even for me, running a business is not easy. And I think there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. But with the AHC, I guess we do our best to educate the business owners, because they come out, they're great hairdressers, but when they start to employ staff, there's trouble. They don't understand the award. Industrial relations is way too complicated. And they just really don't understand KPIs, what they should be paying in rent. And they can get ripped off really easily by landlords, etc. So, our role is to guide them, help them, and make sure that they do have HR advice, sort of that type of thing. I would suggest to anyone in business to make sure that you belong to an association, because it's the information, the backup that you can receive from that association that is specifically representing your industry. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's a really lonely place being an owner out there. You could be in a shopping centre amongst hundreds of other businesses, but it's still, I think, largely a lonely exercise when you have some challenges or when you have some really exciting opportunities. You're not quite sure who to share them with or how to go about it. So that's why industry bodies and the work you do is vitally important, and you encourage everybody any owner to become part of their industry body or at least networks and get amongst other business owners, because the problems are pretty universal, and
exactly.
you share the load a little. So that the industry, how do you see the? I just keep thinking about. I think one of the things that we've got to allow more hairdressers in, because through the skilled migration program, because the industry needs them, and you said, and poaching them from competitors, it doesn't net help the industry overall. So, really, your thoughts on where the industry is at, what it needs to do as an industry to sustain it, so people can be assured of a quality haircut for the next.
Yeah, well, you brought up a couple of things there. So I know that with today, there's been the release of the migration review, and I've cast my eyes over it already. I think again, hairdressing though has missed out, because the TISMET, which is the minimum amount that you are to pay someone if you're sponsoring them, is too high for our industry. So the government has looked after, the much higher end industries where the wages are $135,000 and up. So unfortunately, we've missed out there. Part of my role, though, is lobbying and doing the advocacy work on behalf of the industry. And so I know that we will, and we have been lobbying for a lower TISMET anyway. We've been on the skill shortage list for over 20 years. How do we grow our industry and make sure there is a sustainability factor there? The hard thing is we're over 80% female, and what happens is we have a skill shortage because they have babies and stay at home, and they may come back, but if they do, it's part-time. So, we become an underproductive industry. We always have that skill shortage. I think investing in apprenticeships is important, and growing your own. It is an investment of time, money, and your energy. And do they all stay? And the answer is no. Time's very different to 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And, there's a transference of, I guess, younger people who like to move between the trades. One thing that is, or I hope that will be better in our future, in all trades for that matter, is the new Jobs and Skills Councils. And what they will do is they're looking at not just training packages, which are very dated, but training, products where you can move amongst a trade and capture, certain units of learning versus being stuck into one trade. Because many industries like ours have a very low completion rate. So we lose 63% of our apprentices in the first year, and there's a few reasons for that. But if they can move units around, then it means that you could start somewhere, move to another trade and not lose anything, and then go to another trade.
Yeah, it's so important that it's really difficult for someone to know at an age where they're starting an apprenticeship that this is the thing they want to do, and maybe it's I don't want to go to a more formal tertiary route and do a course and switch between trades. It says that they're interested in acquiring some skills, and maybe they're going to move around a bit. Yeah, it shouldn't be penalised, should it? Or it shouldn't be so much weight on them that this is the one thing they've chosen and that's it.
Yeah.
Whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and they have to start again. Although the data shows a lot of success with SBAT. So, kids that start a trade while they're at school in year 11 and year 12. And
okay.
That's showing a lot of promise. So, we're working with, different, departments to try and encourage that. So more school-based apprentice trainees. So they work in a business one day a week, they go to college one day a week, and they go to school the other three. And it's part of their high school certificate. The other one that we're looking at too is group training organisations, because they seem to have a higher completion rate. And it's because of the mentoring that happens with them. So that doesn't happen in our industry, and I really think it would be really great if we could if we could be part of that. But I think our salon's not quite used to that idea, that they don't quite know how that works.
Yeah, it's as you said, it can be a disruption when you're worrying about all the other things that come with running a business. But it is so pleasing to hear when there are employers, smaller businesses who employ so many Australians that they will open their door one day a week, and I think that's a part of the answer is to have exposure to small businesses as an employer, as challenging as it can be. The bigger organisations do a great job. However, if you go in and you see what goes on in a small business, even at a young age, I'm sure it leaves an impression, straight away, whether it's, perhaps good, bad, or otherwise.
I think a lot of people too think that what goes in the till goes in your pocket, and it's certainly not the case, as you know, with small business. Most small business people, all small business people pay themselves last, and many will actually get paid a lot less than their staff. And when we go home, we worry about our business. We go to bed, we worry about our business. We wake up, we worry about our business.
Yeah, and the people that you're employing, it is. It's but as you say, that education, there's a lot of education that can be done, and good on you've and other industry bodies for doing that. Just to make owners more aware of the basic finances of a business. Cash. Cash in is not what you necessarily take out. We all want to have cash flow is a great thing, but you've got to manage it, and that's if you haven't been exposed to cash flow, profit and loss, management accounts, it can look completely overwhelming. I see that all the time with owners, but it's also not rocket science once you've had a bit of training and a bit of awareness through.
Yeah. Well, I think accountants don't speak our language either. And, you look at a P&L and it doesn't really make sense. I've always worked on percentages, so I like to know what percentage were my wages, what percentage is my supply cost, what percentage is my rent, and so I always would work off percentages. And even when we speak to hairdressers and their staff, we'll talk about 100 cents or, which equals 100%. And what percentage should be on your stock, all of that type of thing. And I find that sometimes a much easier way. Sometimes I think if an accountant could just talk like that, then we'd get it straight away.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's some fantastic accountants doing some great work explaining to owners what the bottom line is and what you should do to make it better, and in a language they understand. But for many it's owners as well. They just want to get the quarterly BAS done, and then they want to get the tax return done, and then they leave all that information and go back to what they were doing a couple of hours before, which is managing staff and working out how they're going to pay the rent. And it's I have those conversations more towards the end of someone's ownership when they're looking to sell, and a lot of business owners they manage by looking at a few KPIs. Maybe it's cash in the bank, maybe it's the work in progress, or whatever the industry is. But fundamentally, most haven't closely analysed their numbers over the preceding years. And really have little or out of kilter expectations about what that translates to in terms of business value for a buyer. So, that's education. With your role, you COSBOA. Do you want to just you had 6 years, and that's one of the premier small business advocacy organisations. And is that a role that you let go only just recently?
I let go at the end of my 6-year tenure, so that was I think it was 2021. And,
it's a few years back, yeah.
So 2021, but we are still very active. I think one of the amazing things, so it's COSBOA is the Council of Small Business Organisations of Australia. So their members are organisations that represent small business. And so what is really, I guess, what happened during the pandemic, of course, is we all had virtual meetings, and COSBOA did set up, meetings every fortnightly or monthly with all of their members, and they've continued to do that. So I have to admit, the good thing is being on the board, it is a lot of work. I certainly take my hat off to all of the directors of COSBOA because the work is huge. However, being able to attend, I'm on a lot of committees, so I should say that. I may not be on the board, but I'm on their education and training, the VET committee. I'm on a whole heap of other committees, the Shadow Economy Advisory Forum, the ACCC Committee on Small Business, greenwashing. I don't know, I'm on a whole lot of different committees that come under COSBOA, the Migration Committee, that come under COSBOA anyway, which is really valuable. But I think the thing that I've learned from COSBOA as well is how to run an association. I think that was really important. And when you were talking before about small business and networking with other like-minded people, one of the values of COSBOA is being able to actually speak with any of those members all the time, whether it is, about, leasing, and dealing with landlords, or whether it is to do with the cost of running a business at the moment, industrial relations, migration, everything that you just said before. Being with COSBOA, whether on the board or off the board, it's an incredibly, I think, it's a real value to our organisation and the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we keep, small business is, for good, bad, or otherwise, it really is the backbone and we're so dominated by a small number of big companies, and we can argue about all the value contributed and the dollars but there's a lot of small businesses and a lot of employees employed by small business. The one sort of point that keeps making me feel a little uneasy is the recognition of I think it's 1.2 million zero employee small businesses. So within the overall definition of what is a small business, 80% of them are zero employees. But there's a lot of those that are legit, in inverted commas, businesses. They might choose to be have zero employees, or they might contract out some work, but they're running businesses and they're standalone businesses. But however, they're independent. They've got their own, usually got their own BAS, GST registration, and have to do all the compliance stuff. So it's not as easy as just taking a salary every week and not have to worry about any paperwork. But that's the one thing. And I think a lot of personal services type businesses, hairdressing, barbering, would come under that. So, they need to get more of a, credibility, more focus. But
yeah, we do have a membership called SOS, Single Operator Salon, and they also go through the checklist, and we have things available for that. 70% of our industry are now single operators. So I hear what you're saying, but we actually do recommend that they can also take on apprentices if they want to. The issue is, and I know you were talking about selling a business, but with the cost of living at the moment, not many not many young people. I'm short. They used to call me Little Sandy, and I hated that for years and years and years. Couldn't wait to get rid of that one. But, a lot of the younger people do not have the money to buy a business. And so, unfortunately, there are quite a few businesses in our industry that are just closing the doors, and they're going to rent a space. Now, the thing is, with a single operator, it could be a stepping stone to opening up a business, just being able to, sort of try on your own. And I'd much rather someone, I guess, go out and be on their own rather than take half my staff, for instance. So there are reasons why we have so many operators who are single operators in our industry.
Good reasons.
And the flexibility is one, it's really difficult with the government and with industrial relations that doesn't permit the flexibility that staff demand and want. And if you're not going to give it to me, I'll go out on my own. That's one. Having families, again, the flexibility. But for salon owners, industrial relations have made it really hard to employ staff. It's probably every business's biggest stress is employing staff.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is increasing with all of the entitlements and also the changes that IR represents.
Well, if you look at the P&L of every business, human resources, employees, and rent are unless you're a manufacturing business, they're your two major cost and expenses, and they represent 80, 90%, but sometimes even more. And so everything else pales into insignificance. But so you're managing two, really giant forces there, the IR, the regulations around employing people and the complexity. And if you're renting a place, you talked about people not being able to afford to buy a business. They can't afford to live in houses as well. So maybe it's a choice between a house and a business, but that's compressing the I think the incentive. I think the incentive's there for a lot of people to do their own thing, but you can't afford it, right? To have both. And it's not quite sure where that all ends, but people want to get their hair cut, and so I guess it'll find its way somehow. But
look, I think the pandemic really showed communities that we're a very valuable part, and that's where small business is great. Okay, when you talk about there's the duopolies out there, as in the Coles, the Woolworths, but we look at community businesses, small businesses, and what we do for our community. Now, with hairdressing, it's part of everybody's self-esteem, their confidence, but it's also a big part of their mental health. And that's where we feel that our industry is very important to our communities.
I agree fully. It's I think the consumers, the customers, the clients look forward to that debrief as well as a haircut. And it's a vital role, and socializing and having someone that you're so up close and personal with for 2-3 hours while you're getting a haircut. So I agree fully. That's the nobility of over and above a great haircut. I'm sure a lot of people would be the worse without it.
Oh, plus we'd know a lot of your secrets too.
Yeah.
Our lips are sealed, don't worry.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's a cone of silence. I wanted to finish on, you reeled off X number of things that you're involved with, and I can, in terms of on committees and boards and advisories. So I understand you've got a deep passion for small business, and that was you received, I think, in April the COSBOA Small Business Champion Award. So is that? Can you just tell us a little bit about what that involved? You'd be like an ambassador for the year, is that, and go out and talk about small business in that role?
Yeah, I think it's to do with your lobbying and the advocacy work that you do. And Bruce Bilson is the Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, and he always says that there's one thing about leaders, and the true leaders turn up. Okay. And, I guess it's one thing that I've always tried to do. I think I've missed hardly any COSBOA meetings. You'd count them on one hand since 2012. And when it comes to speak, I'll drive down to Canberra for a 1 hour meeting. It's a 5-hour drive for me. Go to Parliament House, stay 1 hour and drive back. And so, I think that's the thing that I do is I turn up as much as I can to everything. I speak to the government on a state and federal level. And I guess because I've been in the industry for 50 years, I own my own business for 39, employed a lot of apprentices. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to representing our industry. I've walked in their shoes definitely walked in their shoes. So when it comes to any aspect, any part of our industry, I guess I sort of know. And if I don't know, I'll go and source what I do need to know. But I think I was recognised with that award just quite simply because my face is always in their face. But mind you, COSBOA has been really generous in making sure I'm included in a lot of things too.
Yeah. Well, as far as I can see, you have all the hallmarks of someone that should get an award like that when in 39 years, and to successfully pass on to another, buyer that's going to run the business in the way you think, is appropriate. And you've trained all these people, you've kind of fed the industry, and it's a great achievement. What drove you in the first place? This is going back a way, but to be a small business owner, I suspect whatever it is, it's still there now as a driver for you.
Oh, I know what drove me to be a hairdresser. It's a very inclusive industry. And I loved the whole tribe and the vibe, and I love the culture and how colourful hairdressing is. And I think that's one thing about our industry. We're very inclusive of anyone. And I was subjected to a lot of bullying when I was younger because I'm part Chinese. And when I walked into a salon, it was just exciting. Do you know what I mean? But as far as opening my own salon, I worked for someone who wasn't a good business person. And I wanted to be a good business person. I wanted to have a successful business. And I knew that if everyone around me was successful with me, then I would be successful too. And I just loved, I guess, helping others, teaching others. I know that I've contributed a lot to the industry as far as education, training, and business goes. And I guess I just really enjoyed having my own business. It's hard work. It is not easy work. It's hard work. And when I had the Paddington salon, I would have worked 6 days and 4 nights for 10 years. I don't remember that part of my life, in fact. But I think, small business people are generally drivers. Do you mean they're a different personality, aren't they? They're out there and they're doing it.
Yeah, they are, and I'm always intrigued as to what it was the trigger for someone to get into their business, and mostly they're pretty humble, and mostly it's sort of less strategic and more, they saw an opportunity, and they don't consider themselves entrepreneurs. They just saw someone that saw an opportunity and they go and do it, and they see themselves mainly as a business owner. Yeah, it's really it's always deeply fascinating, and they in a lot of cases are doing it because there's purpose, and there's financial benefits. Sometimes they're really significant. Often they earn themselves a wage and some decent profits, and they got a lot of flexibility, but they feel like they're doing something that they're connected to. Not everyone. They all have their bad days, of course, but I've probably made more mistakes than most business people too, I think, right from day one, because our business flew and I had nothing in place, no policies, no procedures, no idea what I was doing. But I did have a very strong clientele, so I made huge mistakes. And I did right to for 39 years I made mistakes. But I guess I just really loved what I was doing, and I've had very few holidays, I will admit that. The most time I've had off was 5 weeks when I had my daughter. Other than that, it was the first 5 years I didn't have a holiday at all. My holidays would be a Sunday and a Monday, and I was pretty excited to get 2 days off in a row. But, small business people, they do work hard, and they often don't have a strategy in place. And I was one of them. I had no plans except to open those doors. And I guess from an AHC perspective, we try and capture those new business people so that we can help them, so they don't make the mistakes like I made. Yeah, there's plenty of people that have made the same mistake, and sometimes more than once, and that networking thing again, or that industry, take advantage of that, because you don't have to face all of these new challenges like you're the only one that's ever faced them. So you're about to...
Oh, I was going to say some don't join an association because they're they're a little bit scared. They think you'll judge them or something. And also too, like of late, I've been saying to potential people, when I go to the industry, I go, the first thing I need to let you know is I'm not a regulator. We're not a regulator, because sometimes, they'll see that you're an association. They think they're going to get into trouble or something. It's like, no, we're here to support you. We're here to represent you.
Yep.
And if things go wrong, then, come to us and let us know, that type of thing.
Yeah, excellent. Sandy, I was going to ask, just to close out for today, do you have any particular small business heroes that or resources that you use on a regular basis to keep, particularly you're still in you're just out of your business, but was there any people you particularly admired and blogs or books that you read?
Do you know, I think I just really enjoy certain people in the industry who, as you say, are humble, who have really great ethical standards in place with their staff. There's some really wonderful people in our industry. Off the top of my head, Jenny Tarrant from Bond Religion has done so much charity work. It's mind-boggling. And Jenny is probably one of the most beautiful people in the world, who has raised no end of charitable funds and supporting homeless or those out of work with her particular salon. Helen Owens from Tigerland in Brisbane is another one. Lots of humanitarian work. I think hairdressers often give back. I think that's one thing that really stands out for me, is they have really incredible business structures. They're incredibly generous to their staff, but it's the community generosity that, I love watching these people. Brendan Mann from Epic in Brisbane is another one. Brodie Signaris is a young business owner who has incredible, ethos with her apprentices. But, in saying that, Charlene Lee over in Perth, insanely good business in Perth. Her salon's called Circle. So there's too many heroes for me to mention, I have to admit.
Yeah, but
I'll miss someone and I'll feel terrible.
No,
I didn't mention them.
Yeah, and they're champions of small business, and hopefully can in that way share some of that through the industry body to kind of motivate and inspire the next generation, who might be a 15 or 16-year-old deciding that they want to take the pathway of a trade. So. Sandy, thanks so much. I really enjoyed the discussion, and to chat with someone who's so steeped in small business is really enlightening and enjoyable. So thank you. Thank
you for having me.
If someone wanted to reach out in your capacity as the CEO of the Hairdressing Council, or in your capacity as the current small business champion, what's the easiest way for them, assuming?
Probably the easiest way to remember is just go to the Australian Hairdressing Council website, and there'll be a contact us, and I actually get all those emails anyway. I see them. I have a team that if I do miss one of them, because they open them up, they'll send it to me. So that's probably the easiest way. Just go to our website.
Yeah, well, we'll put the website in the show notes, and so if you're listening, and don't worry, it'll be in the show notes. Maybe we should just call it out anyway, the website.
So it's www.theahc.org.au. So theahc.org.au.
Excellent. All right, Sandy, great chat. Thanks so much for your time. I wish you well.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Small Business Banter, and I hope it was helpful in you getting the most out of your small business ownership. To subscribe or listen back, or to check out any of the resources or information we talked about today, head over to the website smallbusinessbanter.com.au, or if you want, search up Small Business Banter on your favourite podcast player. Don't forget to subscribe, and if it was really helpful, I'd love it if you told another business owner about the podcast. If you thought it was exceptionally helpful, then how about you leave me a 5-star rating? If you think I can help personally, please reach out to me, Michael Kerr, via the website. There's a new episode out every couple of weeks. We'll catch up then.